everyone that is joining us today to the fifth session of our AI and leadership short course. It's the final session, and I'm looking forward to the insights that we delivered today. I have today my co-host with me, Alex Fenton, and the rest of my presenters today, guest speakers, as well as one of our alumni students. Just to introduce myself, my name is Toyosi Oyeloye, and I'm the deputy head of the School of Computer and Engineering Sciences, and coming to you from the University of Chester. I will just hand over to Alex to introduce himself, and then we'll hear from the rest of the team here. Alex.
Thanks, Toyosi. Can you believe it? It's the final session. We're here already, and another action-packed session today with some fantastic speakers. We've got quite a few live viewers today as well. So anybody that's joining us live, please feel free to make a comment. Tell us what country you're listening from or what you're looking forward to today. It'd be great to hear from you. If you just put some in the comments, and we can feature some of the best comments in there as well. So yeah, I'm Alex. I'm obviously co-host with Toyosi. It's been my pleasure to co-host this course, and we've got some cracking guests today. Eddie, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Alex. Hi, Eddie Borup. I'll do a deeper sort of introduction as part of my presentation, but I'm presenting today on the topic of project management and AI, and really pleased to be here.
Great stuff. Thanks, Eddie. And Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Welsh. I'm an Associate Professor of Academic Innovation at the University of Chester, and my presentation today is about AI and environmental sustainability.
Brilliant. And we're really lucky to have our graduate Deepan with us as well.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Joyce and Alex, firstly, for having me here and giving me this opportunity. And hi, guys. I'm an alumni of University of Chester. I did my master's in cybersecurity. I've completed in 2023, and now I'm working as a cloud security specialist with one of the healthcare organization in UK. And yeah, so that's me. Thank you.
That's great, Deepan. Thank you, everybody, again for joining us on this one. It's going to be a good session. So first of all, as usual, Toyosi and I are just going to talk through briefly what's been going on at the university and just recapping on a few things relating to the course. And then after that, we're going to bring Eddie in. So we're just going to put you guys backstage for a moment, and then we'll see you very soon. Okay, Toyosi. So here we are, the fifth session. So AI project management and the environment. Yeah. So these two things are really critical, aren't they? And I'm glad we've managed to fit these elements into the course as well. And a good note, I think, to finish on as well, Toyosi. But before we delve into this, you wanted to say a few things about the other stuff, because we're at session 5 now, the last session, Toyosi. So now we're thinking about, well, what are the next steps? So I wonder if you could tell us a bit about that.
Yes, thank you very much, Alex. So the next step is to want more of what we have been given so far. So I believe whoever has been following up on the sessions we've had so far have taken out a lot of things, new information and new learning. And this is just to come to say that the learning does not end here. And we have lots of courses that actually relate to all of the various topic areas that we have covered in this short course. And on the screen here, we have a list of some of them, or should I say most of them. And it's we have those ones for the undergraduates as well as the postgraduates. One thing I mentioned in one of the previous sessions is the fact that most of our courses now have some form of AI learning embedded in them. Sometimes they are really, should I say, deep into it, depending on the intensity of what is required for that particular course. So the course content determines whether or not it's going to go very technical. And there are some that may be slightly lighter, depending on what is required for the course. So looking at something like applied artificial intelligence, which will have more of the technical bits, and then also looking at even things like the MSc conversion cybersecurity has some form of AI aspect to it. So whichever it is that is our audience may be interested in, I think they can continue to look into maybe our website to see details of some of these courses, and email the course leaders as well to get more details if they need more details about the courses. I also know that recently we got our top the top 10 NSS results, which also shows that my colleagues and I are actually delivering what we have come here to do. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to show you around. Thank you very much, Alex.
That's brilliant, Toyosi. We've seen obviously a number of our professors and over this whole course, and heard about some really interesting sort of practical research projects that are going on. But as you say, with the National Student Survey NSS results, Chester is really known, isn't it, for its student support and for its teaching. So so that's brilliant. So obviously, take a look at the website, have a look at these programs. As Toyosi says, have a get in touch with program leaders, have a chat, and obviously, we've met a number of people, haven't we, on this program through this course as well, and connect with people on LinkedIn and so forth as well. So that's all good. Thanks for that, Toyosi. There is going to be a bit of a bonus session. I say this is the last session, Toyosi, but we're actually launching our strategic digital transformation with a virtual book launch on the 1st of October from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. UK time. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's a little QR code there if anybody, again, it's another free session. We've got some fantastic speakers lined up, Toyosi, from Microsoft and Arup and a really fantastic organization called Tomorrow Group. You remember Dora, Chief AI Officer?
Yes.
So we've got the chairman of the whole group joining us for this session as well. So it should be a really good one. And obviously there'll be a big AI element to this one as well, Toyosi. So yeah, it's another free event. QR code's there, but I'll come back to that one later as well and tell you a little bit more about that bonus session. Okay. As always, it's not too late to register. If you've not done so already, you can do that on Chester AC UK/study/AI and leadership. We're at the last session now. All these are live streamed and recorded. You're going to have until the 1st of October, I think, to complete the quiz and to get the certificate. And that's what the certificate's looking like. So the quiz isn't live yet. We've got to, now we've completed the course. We just need a couple of days to get the quiz live. Once you complete the quiz, and I think an exit survey, Toyosi, then you'll be able to get this this lovely looking certificate. And then please do feel free. We had a lot of people last time sharing the certificate on LinkedIn as well. That was really popular. So please do that. If you've got any questions or comments about this one as well, please do feel free to put that in the chat. All right. So just to recap, you're going to have until about the 1st of October to complete the quiz and get the certificate. Any questions, drop us a line. So that is pretty much it, Toyosi. We'll come back to this later, but obviously, make sure you follow us on social media, post your certificate to social media, and look out for the bonus session. But we'll come back to that in a little bit, Toyosi. Anything else before we move on?
Yeah, that's just it. So for the Chester website, please take note that we have it here, that it can be accessed via the QR code.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks, Toyosi. Right, so without further ado, then let's get into the main event. So Eddie, thank you so much for joining us. So you're going to be talking to us about AI and project management, and so we're really looking forward to this one, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, let's crack on. So yes, project management and AI. So very first, though, let me just give you a little background about me. Slightly different from, I think, some of the other presenters I have, in that I have a career background in industry. A humble apprentice at the beginning in telecommunications in a private sector, bought out by Cable and Wireless that merged us with Mercury, if you go back far enough, and then became Cable and Wireless itself, now owned by Vodafone. 21 years in that industry. Last two jobs, head of delivery during the merger of NineX, Bell Cable Media, and Videotron with Mercury. And before that, it was head of projects and program management, which is really the first time I'd been a full head of a department of that type. During that tenure, I also did 10 years in the Territorial Army, joined as a soldier, realized how hard that was, and convinced them to let me go to Sandhurst later on in life. So commissioned at the end of that, which is quite fun. I left Cable and Wireless to set up my own consultancy, really to just do project management as a individual, but realized because I'd helped Cable and Wireless go down the route of Prince2 and implementing it, that at that time there was quite a demand. So was able to convince the APM to create something called an accredited consulting organization, and my company came one of the first in the world. And so for 5 years, there were only 3, so I had quite a good chance to spread my wings. Grew the business and then eventually sold it to ILX. And after a year of transitioning, my staff left and joined my largest client, which was the UN. I worked for several of the agencies, spent about 7 years, worked in over 40 countries, quite a privilege. Last full appointment was head of delivery in South Sudan. And sadly, though, the civil war broke out after about a week or so of my arrival, so the first 18 months in that conflict. At the end of that, came home, and I think we all know the phrase imposter syndrome, because remember, I started as a humble apprentice, never been to university. I live in Cheshire. My nearest university is Chester, and they happen to have a master's program in project and program management. So I went on to that really to start to try to understand what I've been doing all my career and really get behind some of the conundrums I've been facing. I'm a chartered project professional with the APM and a fellow. I have a family, 3 daughters, as well as a daughter that we help foster. Back now at the University of Cambridge doing my PhD, because I'm trying to understand why project management is still struggling after all these years. And I'm hoping that AI may be part of that catalyst to give the profession a bit of a change to move on. So without further ado, I'd like to just very quickly make sure that we have some basic definitions. What a project is. These are all from the Association of Project Management, APM, one of the 2 bodies really in the world that have a membership sort of approach and bodies of knowledge and do quite a bit of research in their own. Project, the key thing out of this is it's supposed to be a unique endeavor to achieve change and achieve its planned objectives. Definition of project management, it's the application of processes, methods, knowledge, and so on to achieve those change. And then the very simple definition of a project manager, the individual who's responsible for the successful delivery of that. Really putting them there so that you understand that, from an academic, where are we coming from in terms of some of these definitions? And I know I've only given one set. Also from the APM, they have decided to put a definition of what they believe AI is in project management. And they clearly think it's a branch of computer science focused on creating systems that can perform a task typically previously required human intelligence. And they've listed, a few of the tasks, things like learning from data, recognizing problems, and so on and so forth. For me, the bold bit is what I'm quite interested in, where it's saying that AI systems can achieve this really without explicit programming for each specific task. So it's that automation side of it. So nothing really exciting there, but just, again, the Association of Project Management has its own sort of definition. It then commissioned a paper, Southampton University, and I put all the sort of links on my final slide. And they came up with 6 key findings. And I think the first 5, are fairly obvious when you sort of look through them on the screen about enhancing decision-making, problem-solving, and it's most likely to be used during the planning phase. I mean, it has its uses throughout the life cycle. And also they're hoping that it will use AI. It'll have the potential to increase the success of the project. And again, for me, the most sort of key one was the final one, where, and again, I've highlighted that they think that it may be the complex projects which have many unknowns that it will help the most. And again, I'm going to hopefully take us through some logic where we can see whether or not there are some uses in other types of projects as well. So just want to give you a very simple example. When I was in South Sudan as again, head of program, head of delivery, and trying to understand, the mass of projects and programs that we had underway. And also that we were having to transition because of the conflict from a humanitarian sort of portfolio from developing portfolio through to humanitarian. And how can I, as head of program, understand all the things that are happening on the product, especially new in the field. So we just took the opportunity with my local IT. We had SharePoint at the time, you'll sort of recognize it here, and decided that we needed what we called one version of the truth, because without the data, we wouldn't be able to make sort of the key decisions we have to make at that time, especially in a conflict zone. So as well as the obvious project data, a common platform for risks, issues, costs, scheduling, and so on, so that every single project was putting the same data in the same place in the same format in order for us to then be able to use it to manipulate and get data. But we then found that there was a whole bunch of other data that was spread everywhere. The list of vehicles, who has radios, their call signs, and so on. So having all data in one platform accessible through the same way. Now, this isn't AI, because in terms of that true definition, it's not doing anything on its own. But as you'll see as we go through the presentation, it's set up for it, because what we now have is consistent data in the same place, in the same way, being captured over a period of time. But with human intervention, we can then look at it and make rapid decisions and so on and so forth. So just sort of parking that there in terms of, there are ways of getting information today that we may need to do in anticipation of then deploying AI to make better use. So now we come to the Project Management Institute, the other membership body that exists within the profession, and they came up with this in terms of what are some of the usefulnesses of AI, and they came to very similar conclusions in terms of reducing costs, allocation of resource, drafting documents, helping decision making, and so on and so forth. But what I really enjoyed about PMI's sort of statement here is, again, the highlighted bit in bold, which is they believe all of this will allow the project managers to focus more on the human factors. So it's not about replacing them, but it's about giving them the headspace to deal with the people issues and focus on those elements which they tend to get sidetracked with having to deal with the more mundane. So I just want to introduce Eddie Obang here. Eddie Obang came up with this principle that there's 4 different types of projects. So what has this got to do with AI? Well, there are projects that we know how to do and we've done before. He called them paint by numbers. Well, if we come back to that study where they're saying, well, maybe AI only has a place of the complexity, what about here in paint by numbers? Surely, if we're being able to learn and understand how to do these projects that we've done before and we're going to do them again, we can convert these maybe to business as usual. An example in the telecoms industry during the merger, we had to merge all the different departments. So at the time I was looking to create the new project management department, interviewing the current heads of projects. And in the smaller companies, the cable companies, for them, a large project was putting in a 2 meg circuit. And they were really excited they could do it quicker than we could in Mercury, but they were only doing 2 or 3 a year, whereas Mercury at the time were doing anything up to 500 a week. So they weren't projects, they were now business as usual. So again, maybe AI can help those organizations that are having to do lots of repetitive projects to sort of figure out how to do them cheaper, faster, quicker. Quest. These are projects where we know what we're trying to achieve, but we're not sure how to get it. And I've used white coats there to sort of simulate the pharmaceutical industry, the cure for cancer. We don't know when it will be. We don't know the cost, but we'll know when we get there. So perhaps AI in these environments will help us with decision making, making sure that we're doing the right projects at the right time and getting the right results, so that we can then focus on the ones that are giving us the best return. And really, it's the same with the movie. These are projects that we know how to do it, but the clarity of why we're doing it isn't there. And if you want an example, look at the UK Millennium Dome. It was a dome. We could say what it was. We could say when it was going to be, but very difficult to explain to people what was going to be in it and used. And really, after that year, sold off to O2, who've then shown how to make very good use of it. And the final one is fog. These are projects we're not entirely sure how to do it. I'm not entirely sure what we're trying to achieve. This is actually where the gold is: true innovation, organizations that can achieve market first, governments that can provide unique services to their population using creativity and innovation. So this is the complexity that the report was talking about. There are many unknowns. So again, how can we help make those unique projects, back to APM's sort of definition, more sustainable, more likely to succeed? So again, just trying to bring in some of the thoughts around how AI, and then coming into maturity. So this is project management maturity, and the concept here is that organizations will go through sort of their growth. The initial level is, do they know the difference between products and business as usual? Level 2, can they repeat it? Level 3, do they have the ability to do it uniquely for projects in a defined way? 4 is that continual improvement, a bit like ISO 9001. And 5 is when we're truly proactive problem solving. Well, again, if we started looking at organizational maturity, how likely is it an organization that's only doing level 2, which are the paint by number projects that's repeatable, will they have the capability to adopt AI to help them? So we have this sort of conundrum. What's interesting is then when you look at the research available, you can find that there's also been work done on the AI in terms of maturity. And again, I'll put the reference in there. This is from a paper that I found which is about data first strategies for project management success. And it talked about transforming data with intelligence and the concept of maturity. And it follows very similar. It's a 5-step maturity model. The first one, nascence, is when, again, you're sort of aware of it but not doing anything about it. The pre-adoption, that level 2, where you're starting to do things but you don't have the capability. And then they talk about early adoption, where you've got things in place ready to do it. And I would put to you the case study I showed you earlier. Without realizing it, that's where we got to, this sort of concept that we defined we were doing quite well in doing different types of projects, everything being done in a similar way, ready for early adoption. And then what they say in the AI maturity is there's this sort of period of a chasm, they call it, while that pre-adoption is quite long before you can then start getting into corporate adoption and beyond. So again, AI, project management, are we ready for it? And if we are, will we make best use of it? So really coming towards the end, it leads me down this sort of concept of what are the challenges facing us. Biggest challenge for me in terms of AI and some of the research is, do we have the data? How many projects are done in a similar way where we're capturing data in order to learn from it, in order to apply it, in order for the machine learning to then help us? Little things, original forecast versus current forecast versus actual, with reasons for the change. So there's quite a bit of complexity in the data that we need to capture for this. And then how do we apply lessons if they're not captured authentically? Will people actually put down, and are they allowed to put down, the real reasons why things went well and things could have improved? And remembering that in project management, it isn't about capturing anymore. It isn't just about capturing lessons learned. We're here also at the beginning of the project to apply lessons so that the project manager can demonstrate from that very first draft of the project documentation to the draft that's going to be approved what value they've added by applying the lessons learned. So again, AI could help us with that. Complexity, capability, my 2 slides, Eddie Obeng and the maturity model. This concept of what if you have individual projects that are quite mature, individual project teams that are quite mature, but the organization isn't? What about your supply chain, and so on and so forth? So, and remember, one person's paint by numbers project is foggy for someone else. So again, this concept of complexity has never really been fully defined because it depends on the situation and the environment that you're in. And then the final area of sort of challenging is matching the maturity of the capability of projects with the capability and the maturity of the data in the organization, and the possible risks that may exist if one is greater than the other and they try to outdo. So, for instance, I've come across many organizations where they think, the first quick win on the AI side in project management is to capture all the risks and the issues so that they start generating these automatically. Well, that's fascinating for an organization, but if they don't have the maturity in the project managers themselves, they won't know what to do with the data. They'll just keep it in the log. And risk management is about managing risk, not just compiling long lists of what it could be. And the other bullet there is the organization ready for change. And I think this again comes out in a lot of the research, that it's not just about implementing AI, it's not just about improving your project management, it is a change to the organization. Anyway, so coming to the end, really thank you for listening. So the back of the slide, I've tried to put some of the references, but I do commend to you a particular article in Harvard Business Review, how AI will transform project management. And it's just, again, it's that concept that hopefully what we'll do is release project managers to go back to what they should be doing, which is focusing on the results, the outcomes, the benefits, and focus on the people issues. So thank you very much. And Alex, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you so much, Eddie. That was super interesting. I've got a couple of questions for you. Obviously, encourage the audience to ask as well. And also, I brought our colleagues back in here in case they've got any thoughts, questions, anybody. But I'll just lead us off, Eddie. I loved what you were saying about, we've still got these ongoing project management challenges. And you can see that, can't you, in large-scale projects and even small-scale things, even to the thing of, everything's a project, isn't it? Doing a PhD is a project in the end. But I'm really fascinated by the concept of that you kind of proposal that AI could improve that situation. And I wonder if you could enlarge on that idea a little bit, particularly because we've seen through this course, the idea that some of these tools, depending on how good the data is, how well it's trained, or what the tool is, it can vary in accuracy. So if we talk about project management, does that pose a risk if the AI tool, if the tool is providing recommendations or elements of that are inaccurate, for example? Could that be disastrous for a project?
Yes, I obviously it can do. I think part of the dilemma, Alex, is often when we're looking at AI data and AI papers around projects, they are looking at the role of the project manager and the role and the sort of impact on the project. And I suppose, and maybe this is the slight angle difference is, of course, that's interesting, but an organization doesn't do one project. And so maybe the real benefit isn't going to be at the individual project level, but for the organization, so that they have the totality of that data, the totality of the risk. So as opposed to the individual project manager, so we may deploy a tool, but if we have 50, 60, 70 project managers, and if you take MOJ, they have hundreds of project managers. I've done some work there. The reality is that you'll have, again, different levels of capability. So you may have a really key project that is, the top priority of that department. But if it's deploying AI only on that project, will the focus of the organization be skewed, even though it is a top priority, if the rest of the organization isn't able to make use of it? So I think there's a challenging period while we try to make use of AI as it comes in, maybe selectively, but I think the focus should be on the organization to understand its totality so that it can perhaps start reducing down. And I think, as I suggested, all the evidence shows they're focusing on complexity to help, whereas I wonder if the answer is to get rid of the vast majority of small projects so that AI can just help automate those to release the organization to focus on the more challenging ones.
So suppose the next generation of project managers, should be able to identify the appropriate tools to use and be able to understand, add that human element that you were talking about, I suppose, to make sure that you're not, overly dependent on the tool, getting the tool to do things that perhaps it isn't designed for, but also to interpret the results and action those human factors. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. The issue here is that the machine learning will take us so far, but it should never be in a situation, back to what is the definition of a project manager. Ultimately, someone has to be accountable for this and verify it. And it's what we do now, but we do it with other humans. If we have a team of other people, engineers, so on, the project manager still has to verify that they're happy with the plans they've come up with, but they're not the subject matter experts. So I do think we still have to verify these things.
Thank you, Eddie. We've got quite a lot of live viewers and reactions and so forth, so please encourage any sort of comments to come through. So, but unless my colleagues have got a question or comment, I think we can move on to the next section. Anybody else?
Yes, I just want to highlight about the human intervention that Eddie talked about, how that when AI can be applied in a project, it actually helps to narrow down the focus such that humans are able to focus more on the tasks that require more human intervention. I think that really came across to me. And looking back at some of the sessions that we did, these were some of the things that were highlighted. And Eddie, you also talked about the cost effectiveness, and that also looks like a very welcome idea. But my question is about the cost effectiveness. We've talked a lot about security. So in the previous sessions, security was one of the major challenges that were highlighted when AI is being adopted in the system or in the project. So can you tell us a bit of what are the odds, what are the possible side effects when we talk about cost effectiveness in project management?
Okay, again, I'll try to relate it to the example I used there, which is not AI driving it, but it is now on reflection. If I was there now, I would be able to apply and start using and creating tools to help. All of that worked because once a week there was a deadline, 12:30 on a Friday, that the data must be entered, and the return on that was no project managers or program managers would have to do reporting. And I was also able to convince up the chain, no more reports from me, just send them the link. So, how does that, in terms of the downside? Well, I can see a point where you get lazy. That the link's it's automated and it's not once a week, it's in real time. I had the luxury of, the data would be updated, as I say, 12:30, midday in essence on a Friday. I could use Friday afternoon, Saturday, because you're working 7 days a week there, to analyze it, go through, and then have breakfast Saturday morning with my project managers, and then have questions and so on. So I think that for me, the issue is inherently as humans, we like, I call it laziness. I don't mean that as a negative. We've got so much to do. I think that is the challenge, which is how much we automatically rely on its capability to provide us information, and we, instead of using it, we ignore it until something, a real red flag comes up.
Yeah.
Whereas the thing is, it's about looking in between the data and its connections to try to understand what's that trending and what it does. So I'm hoping that once we get to that point, we're still, as Alex made the point, we're still as humans analyzing the data so we understand what it means for us and how to use it, as opposed to assume the system's gonna, just use it for us.
Yeah. That's fantastic, Eddie. All right, so we could carry on that debate all afternoon, I think, but I think in the interest of time, I think let's move on to the next section, which is going to be Catherine. So over to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Alex. Morning, everybody. So I'm Associate Professor Catherine Welsh, and I'm an Associate Professor of Academic Innovation and one of the University of Chester's Innovation Fellows. I've got two roles at the university. One is the University Innovation Fellow, and the other one I work in Geography and Environment as a lecturer. And so my interest in AI and environmental sustainability has come from both of those roles. So obviously I'm very interested in the environment from my geography work, but also in my role as a University Innovation Fellow, I'm currently leading our AI and Education Working Group. So that's sort of where my interest in this area has come from. So just to give a little bit of background, the term Fourth Industrial Revolution has been used probably in around the last 15 years or so. And the idea behind the Fourth Industrial Revolution is thinking about how humans interact with machines in new ways. So it's been going on about 15 years or so. And this encompasses things like artificial intelligence, but also our smart devices, Alexas, Ring doorbells, those kinds of things. Things like cloud storage, augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D printing, quantum computing, all of which are innovative, but take more energy and more resource to get us to use those technologies in new ways. So the Fourth Industrial Revolution is kind of the backdrop to this. And we've also got, so whilst going through this technological revolution, we're also facing growing populations. So there's more people, the population of the world is growing, but not only that, there's a growing population of people who have access to technology and to use energy and resources in this way. So we're facing increased demand for energy and increased demand for resources against this kind of the backdrop of the technological revolution that we're currently going through. So there's been a lot of debate. There's so much information online about how much, essentially answering the question, like how much energy and water does a single prompt take? And I gave this talk or similar talk back in June. And at that time, I avoided putting specific and accurate and precise measurements or information on the slides because there is so many, the way in which those figures are calculated looks different depending on who's calculating, the reasons they're calculating them for, the type, the information that they're taking into those calculations. But very recently, I think it might have been last week or the week before, Google released some figures that they'd calculated themselves for a single prompt using the Gemini model. So they estimate that 0.24 what hours are used in terms of energy and 0.26 milliliters of water are used per prompt, which they say is the equivalent of sort of, I think, the sort of the summary of that is around the standard, running a standard microwave for about 1 second. So the challenge really with the calculations is all the calculations I've seen are calculated in different ways. So it's really difficult to get a solid understanding of how much energy is being used. But it's not necessarily the single prompt or the prompts across the sort of the global level that are being the challenge. The creation and the process of training the models are really where the energy and resource consumption is the greatest challenge. So things like raw material extraction, refining of the materials, manufacturing the conductors, assembling the electronics, transporting the components, packaging, and so on. So that's for things like creation of the raw materials to generate these models. The training of the models is very energy intensive. Cooling of data centers. So again, thinking about the hardware life cycles, the data center operations and the logistics associated with the data centers. So actually the training of the models is very energy and resource intensive. Rather than at the moment, that's kind of the thinking, rather than just thinking about a single prompt from an individual user. But of course, it's not just one person who's using an AI tool at any one time. You know, there's been a huge increase in the last 3 years. 3 years ago, most people weren't using AI in their day-to-day work or their day-to-day routines. And so My perspective is that we're using AI more than we were 3 years ago. Therefore, at this present time, there is more energy and resource being used. As innovation takes place, and we get that kind of improvement in terms of energy efficiencies, we will start to see, and we are already starting to see, energy and carbon footprints reducing over time. But there's, as I said, we're all using AI more than we were 3 years ago. And I know a lot of people, both our students, staff, other people I'm talking to, have lots of concerns about environmental sustainability and AI. So it's quite clear to me that there's a lot of work needs to be done at the top. So top-down approaches from these companies who have AI models. How can they improve the efficiencies around training the models and all of those things I've just talked about? Excuse me. And for me, I like to think about how we can empower individuals. So thinking what can we do at an individual level to try to improve the way in which we engage with AI tools to try to be a little bit more efficient. And my sort of philosophy is that if we all make we all start to make some improvements to the way in which we're engaging with AI tools, that sort of collective approach will have an impact. It might be a small impact, but it's still a positive impact in terms of environmental sustainability. So my first top tip is to improve prompting. So a very basic prompt that if you haven't had much to do with AI and haven't had much to do with prompt engineering, you might write a simple prompt, such as write a blog post about raising flood awareness in a small community. So like that's kind of my research area and my area of interest in geography. So that's the kind of prompt I might want to write about. Whereas, excuse me, a better prompt gives much more information about who's writing the blog. So we're talking about a flood warden with lots of experience, give a bit of background about that flood warden. So, giving that information, like the tone is there, it's got empathy, it's got understanding, and giving the AI tool a little bit more to go on so that the first iteration it creates is better than it would have been just from a basic prompt. So the more information you can give in a single prompt to generate that first iteration of the output, it's going to be more energy efficient, even only on a micro level, but it's still going to be more energy efficient than having to reprompt and refine and reprompt and refine. You might need to do some of those refinements after, even with the better prompt. But what you will find is that you'll probably need to do fewer of them compared to the sort of more basic prompt. So improving your prompts is top tip number 1. Reducing your future prompt iteration. So this was from a colleague of ours, Gary Robinson, who suggested that actually when you get to that final point of having a really good output from an AI tool, reprompt it once more. So yeah, one additional prompt, but hopefully to help you learn and to educate you about how to write better prompts in the future. So, but if you've got a really good output from an AI tool, ask the AI tool, can you write me a prompt that would have got me to this final output in one go? So what prompt did I need to get me to this point in one go, so I didn't need to review and revise and so on? And so you're essentially reverse engineering the prompt to try to learn from the answer. So this is what I've done with the example I gave before about the community risk of flooding and the blog. And this is what the AI tool gave me. So this is much more detailed even than the sort of better prompt that I had before. It describes what the paragraph should look like, what the tone should look like, and it gives much more information to the AI tool. So from that, I've learned about being more specific, about putting more detail in about paragraphs and so on. So actually, by sort of reverse engineering it in this way, we can learn from that, so we won't have to prompt and revise and review as many times. The other thing to think about is to delete unnecessary items. So, for example, in image generation or chat or prompt history, not all of what you will have prompted or the sort of outputs an AI tool will give you or the images are going to be suitable. And so I imagine most people tend to leave those images or leave those files or those chats in their online spaces. So they'll sit in the cloud even though they're not going to be used. So in Adobe Firefly, for example, it might give you four different types of images. You might just want to use one. You might not find any of them suitable. So I would suggest that you can go through your chat or prompt history and identify any files that can be deleted so that they're not sitting in the cloud using energy on these kind of big servers to keep those files live when you need them next. So if you don't need them, I would suggest delete them. The other top tip, if you use search engines, you'll have noticed that they produce an AI overview at the top of the slides. And so you can type into the search bar, instead of just asking the question, you can ask a question or whatever it is you want to search for and type the letters -AI. And that will stop that sort of AI overview popping up for you. So that again reduces energy, because you're actually, so in the first example there, we've got an AI overview summary which has been generated using energy and resource, whereas in the second example we have it's been pulled from the web, so it's existing, it's not being created as new. The other thing I'd really encourage everybody to do is think critically about their own use of AI, and just because we can use it, does it mean we need to use it for everything? This SAMR model, which I really like when I think about technology and the suitability of technology, helps us to think about that. So it's worth thinking that through with AI as well. So are we using AI as a substitution where there's no functional change? So could we do it ourselves? Is there a functional change maybe in efficiency or effectiveness? Is it going to augment it? So is AI going to help us to modify our task and help us to redesign the way in which we do that? Or is it completely going to redefine what we do? And these sort of the modification and redefinition on this model are the sort of transformational parts rather than just the enhancements. So I think it's always really helpful to think through, why am I using AI? Should I, just because I can do, does it mean I need to? Does it mean I should? Should we be just using AI as a substitute, or should we only really be focusing on it, thinking about it for transformative purposes? So I think it's always really useful for me to think through what tips me one way or another in terms of using AI in terms of the context of environmental sustainability. So I really have to think through a task and think, is this going to be worth prompting using an AI tool? Is it something I can't do? Is it going to be transformative, or is this just a substitute and I can just do it as easily myself? I think another really important thing is to talk about it. So raise awareness about energy demands of AI at your own institutions. We've created 5 ways to use AI in more environmentally sustainable ways, which we sort of share with our colleagues. I think it's really important to keep asking questions. So any AI tool developers you're working with, universities, businesses, wherever, yourself, keep asking yourselves those questions about whether we should be using AI and whether it's being used in a way that's aligns with your values and so on. Keep up to date with what's going on. LinkedIn's a really good place for finding out more information about how AI companies are using AI and what they're trying to do to make AI tools more environmentally sustainable. And we've got an organisation in the UK called JISC who kindly provided some of the slides earlier on for me, and they have a fantastic digital sustainability newsletter, and they're really that's really got really great information in there. So again, just the sort of final questions to ask yourselves. Do you have a good understanding of how much energy and water are used to generate and store information? As I said earlier, that's quite difficult to find precise information. But I think thinking what we can do at an individual level is really empowering. And although there is a lot of action required top down, I think that bottom up approach and thinking at individual levels is also really important. You can also think about whether the AI tool has a specific sustainability rating, or does it have corporate social responsibility statements about sustainability on the website. And then I think it's really important to sort of think about whether you're generating information frivolously or purposefully. And I think everyone kind of has to go through that experimentation phase where they come up with images like those on the right-hand side. So it's important to kind of go through that phase. But once you understand how to prompt and understand where to get to with different types of prompts, I think we need to be thinking about what the purpose of the generation is. And then that final question about what do you do with the information that you've generated but no longer need? Can you delete it so it's not sitting on servers? Because that will help as well in terms of environmental sustainability. And that's kind of where I'm going to finish, but please do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn at any point.
Catherine, thank you so much for that. So much information in there as well, I think, which is really inspiring. Such an important topic as well, isn't it? Again, open the floor now to any questions. I'll just start us off though, Catherine. I loved what you were saying about the Google releasing its figures. And I don't know if anyone's tried this, but with your favorite AI tool, ask it how much power it's using, and it will come back with some slightly similar answers. And exactly as you say, Catherine, it's not taking into account how much power was taken to actually put this together in the first place. So there's I mean, you wouldn't think it in the UK, would you? But we have got a real water shortage at the moment because of population growth and global warming, etc. And we haven't built any reservoirs for 30 years. The next one that's planned is in Oxfordshire, and the suspicion is that that entire reservoir will just go to fueling the hyper data center demand that's been built in Oxfordshire for the demand for AI. So it's a big challenge, this one, isn't it? And we can't just think, oh well, that prompt's just like 1 minute in the microwave, because in the end there is a bigger impact to these things, isn't there? So I just think that it's such a fascinating thing. The other thing I was wondering, Catherine, as well, is about using the AI tools to come up with suggestions to make ourselves a bit more sustainable or reduce our carbon footprint, etc. So, purposeful prompts that allow you to, to delve into that information and come up with some personalized recommendations for you. So, Eddie, almost like project managing your own sustainable carbon footprint, I suppose. So, I just thought if you had any thoughts on that, Catherine, in terms of the using the AI tools to, reduce your carbon footprint, I suppose, and that bigger picture, I suppose, in the end.
I think it depends where you're at. I think the benefit of an AI tool is that it can give you something very personalised if you give it enough information about yourself, your lifestyle, and so on. So I think there's that, and I think if people really learn from that, and you're not kind of over prompting, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think anything where you can learn from something to do better is a good thing. But I think it's just, like you say, it's not necessarily the individual impact, it's that collective impact of all of the individuals together that's important. I mean, there's other schools of thought around this where because an AI tool could write a report in seconds, are they at that individual scale, are you actually using less energy by doing that rather than having your desktop computer or your laptop on all day plugged into the wall? So there's that scale. I think this is why I'm really reluctant to put any of these kind of figures up, because I think it just depends on how you're thinking about it, what you're comparing it to, what you were previously doing, and so on. But I think the big points for me are we're all using AI more than we were 3 years ago. And I think collectively that we really need to just have an awareness of it and try to do all we can to sort of mitigate our own impact.
I think there's just a real temptation to like generate an image or generate a report or generate something, whether you're going to use it or not. And that all that stuff has got to be stored somewhere on a server, which all takes power, doesn't it? So it's like you say, it's like the responsible use of it. Don't just generate a bunch of reports and a bunch of images that you've got no intention of doing anything with, I suppose, in the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Eddie, just coming back to the project management front, I suppose a lot of the environmental challenges we've got in the end, are going to take good project management. So I wonder about the capacity of AI tools to be able to allow us to solve some of these sustainability challenges as well through good project management. What do you think?
Yeah, my head is spinning with Catherine's presentation. I'm trying to come up with a metric. Even doing my PhD, could I prove that, you know, the further I get into my PhD, I'm using AI more responsibility, you know, and how I reduce my footprint. So, sorry, I've sort of gone off on a tangent, but no, I think you're right. Especially the work I did in the development sector, as you know, it was the Millennium Goals and now it's been replaced with more sustainability goals, and it's key. I think it's easier for most people to get their head around the environmental measures that are physical and tangible. But as you say, if you, especially if you're working in parts, remember we're here in the United Kingdom, but if you're working in parts of the world where water is scarce, I mean properly scarce, in terms of people inability to drink clean water, and yet we might be working as international communities in those areas, generating AI in a way that isn't necessarily getting our return. So that would, as I say, my head's spinning at the moment, trying to come up with some sort of metric to try to offset what you're doing. But
there's such powerful messages about, good project management and, responsible use of AI for any kind of leaders and anybody, carving out the career in this area and at whatever point you're at, I think. So two powerful messages. So also, any thoughts before we move on to the final section?
Yeah, thanks for coming to me, Alex. So I was going to tell Catherine to say thank you to Catherine for actually confirm what Eddie mentioned in his discussion, particularly with regards to the side effect when there are other things that could happen over reliance on AI. And this actually confirms to the details some of the subtle way that we could actually be having detrimental issues. As much as we get the timely output, as much as we get what we're looking for, we have to have a proper balance. You have to use the AI with some moderation. And I think that's something we really need to start raising the awareness about, so that while we are trying to achieve something, while we're actually achieving things, we don't get those side effects that are unpleasant.
Absolutely.
And sorry to interrupt you guys, but in addition to Toyosi, what explained, and firstly, thanks Eddie and Catherine for the presentation. It's amazing. I agree somehow, like industry needs really some frameworks and regulations in use of AI, because AI is on very early stage, and the way people are using people, if I think about security perspective, people are misusing that. They're creating a lot of threat vectors, and they're using multiple prompts at the moment. So in terms of sustainability, also it's not equally acceptable, or it's a big threat to humans. Yeah. So I think by including some frameworks and regulations like other regulations like GDPR and NIST, etc., so we can control misuse of AI.
Thank you so much, Deepan. And on that note, we've just got around 5 minutes left, Toyosi. So over to yourself and Deepan.
All right, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Deependa, for joining us today. Deependa, you did your MSc cybersecurity with us, I think, back in 2023, and you have come back to us to tell us a bit of your experience while you were with us, and then since you had left us. So my first question is, what was it that interested you in the University of Chester? What was it that attracted you to Chester?
Firstly, thanks for giving me this opportunity to see the. Yeah, so the first thing, if I think as an international student and my interest in cybersecurity, the best thing was the course. It's industry aligned course with mix of a practical and theoretical modules alongside some experienced teachers. Some of us still name Nabil was there that time, and Thaddeus. So that's amazing. And the class environment was the most important, because when you are sitting in a diverse class, so equally important, you got networking with your peers, and they're also very warm, welcoming. So all these stories I read myself being an international student before enrolling with University of Chester. So these are few things. And again, being an international student was important to find out a city that's financially, economically in favor of a student. So I think these are few things, including the course, teachers, and then finance side. So that's why I I enrolled myself in University of Chester, and I really got lucky after finishing my master's. So the course gave me opportunity to learning technically, but also enable some confidence in myself and give opportunity to attend some events, do some networking, and also help to improve my communication. When you come in a new land, it's not easy because there are a lot of slangs, a lot of challenges in terms of communications and the culture. So all these things, the support I got from uni from was amazing. So time to time, they checking on my well-being, how I'm doing, and if I need any kind of support or yeah, so that helped me improve myself a lot. And after doing my course, I got a lot of confidence, and now I'm working as a cloud security specialist. So I think that's because of the course, the MS that I did from University of Chester.
Oh, thank you very much. I was actually going to ask whether or not we met your expectations, but from what you just told us now, it sounds to
No.
me like we did meet your expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, please do. Say.
Yeah, so I think my aim was to enhance my technical skills. So in terms of course, penetration testing course is very in demand. That's ethical hacking, and then cloud security was there. So I think when I enrolled in back in 2022, that was the most in demand and still in demand. And what I want to achieve from the course, I achieved, and I'm happy with my job at the moment. And that's again because of the course and the design and the modules that I learned.
Thank you very much. So going forward, Dipen, how has some of the things that you said you learned and you were able to participate in when you were studying with us, can you tell us in detail, to the extent you want to, how have some of these things, how have they affected your career progression since you left Chester?
So one thing that I remember, the group activities in terms of assignment.
Yeah.
So that helped me to work with a diverse community, because my class was very diverse, from African community, Asian community. So that gave me opportunity to speak with different community peoples and understand their culture. And also when I was working in a group discussion assignment, okay, it gave me how we can I understand how we can work in a team, and why it's equally important to understand each other in the team, and the respect I developed between my group. So that's equally important when we are working professionally. So it's not just about going and doing my job. It's equally important to understand my peers and respect them. So that was one of the most important thing for me. And then second was that explanation by my teachers in technical terms. They're very patientful, just listening me and answering my questions. So that was another second thing. So these are two major things that helped me, and I really admire still being a student.
Thank you very much, Dipenda. I can see that you really enjoy being with us, and I can see that you're taking your career forward. I wish you all the best in your career progression, and thanks again for joining us today. Yeah.
Deepan,
thank you so much.
It's really good to hear about your journey, and congratulations, for everything you've done. It's great, we've seen our students, alumni, and our professors and people from industry have kind of really been able to embrace AI and and technology and allow them to kind of the careers to flourish and then adapt into these new job roles that have been created in AI as well that we were talking about last week. So thank you so much, Deepan, and thank you, Eddie and Catherine, for the fantastic insights. I think this has been a really good conclusion to our AI leadership course, and thank you to you, Toyosi, for being a fantastic co-host. It's been really good working with you on this, Toyosi. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I hope our audience have enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so just the last thing to say, no problem at all, Deepan. Thank you. So just the last thing to say for everybody, make sure if you've not registered already, you can do that through the QR code. Get yourself onto the system, watch back some of the other sessions as well. And then, as I say, the certificate should be accessible through the quiz and the exit survey within the next 48 hours. So watch out on the learning system for that. Make sure you follow us, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. And once you get your certificate, make sure you post that to social media as well. And we're going to see you for the bonus event. So the course is completed now, but we're running our virtual book launch event for Strategic Digital Transformation talking about AI and sustainability with guest speakers from Microsoft, Arup, and Small Group as well. So that's the 1st of October, 4 p.m. UK time. The web address is on the screen there. You can see the QR code on the bottom right. So that's it, Toysi. Can you believe it? We're at the end.
Yeah, it's amazing to look back and see how everything went on, and then the finale that we had today. And it's really been pleasant having you as a co-host, as well as having the various speakers that we have invited, as well as the audience. So thank you to everyone.
Thanks a lot, Toysi. Great words. Thank you, everybody. Okay, take care, and bye-bye. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye all. See you soon. Bye.